right, so it's kind of a light day, pretty quiet day when it comes to a lot of stories as far as like breaking news. None of that. Very quiet. Not even a lot of injury notes that you normally get by about this time of the week. Heisman Trophy update. Garrett sent this one in from Circus Sports. Ashton Gente, led by Craig Smoak as his president of the Ashton Gente fan club, is favored right now. Dylan Gabriel, after the win against Ohio State, that surely didn't hurt. Cam Ward, they're rolling along at Miami. Travis Hunter, and then Jalen Milroe, Carson Beck, Quinn Ewers, back-to-back-to-back quarterbacks in the SEC.
Yeah, not surprised that that's where it is right now. Carson Beck hasn't done anything for me that suggests he should be a Heisman candidate at this point, but the top three, that's who I would send to New York if I were doing it right now, and Ashton Gente would be my winner. No offense to Travis Hunter, who did say on RG3's podcast the other day, like, what if I had – he's got 95 carries and 1,000 yards. What if I had 95 catches? And, even Robert was like, well, that's, not really, possible, right?
Yeah.
And also, if over the season, all he has to do is look at LeJontay Wester, who had 115 catches last year for FAU, who's on his own team now, and say how many yards you have, and he had 114 catches for about 1,300 yards. That's about the same. Running backs and wide receivers, it just takes running backs more carries to get those yards because they hand him the ball 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage and all.
I think the only way, Craig, that Carson Beck even gets into any of the conversation, Georgia would have to win the game in Austin this weekend.
Yeah, that would have to happen, and then I think they'd have to win out the rest of the way. I don't understand otherwise why he would be a candidate. Nothing that he's doing statistically is all that impressive, and his two highest passing yardage games where he cracks the 400-yard mark and he's got 3 touchdowns. He's also got a total of 5 interceptions against Mississippi State and Alabama. So, that's a entry that I guess makes sense because he was on there at the beginning of the year and makes sense because there's not really anybody else from Georgia to put up in that spot. So maybe you feel the need to have them have a guy there, I guess. Otherwise, I don't really understand it. I think sometimes, too, on these lists, a lot of times in college football, you have to determine which people are actually looking at college football and which people are projecting out to the NFL.
Absolutely, yep.
There's a lot of NFL fans who cover college football and cover it from an NFL perspective, and that's where I could see maybe some of that love for him coming into play. Beyond that, he's not in my top 5 Heisman list right now, and I don't think he'll be in it when it's all said and done, but we'll see. Ashton Gente's my number 1 guy as well, although I see the folks already trying to pick apart his level of competition, and that's understandable. You knew that would come with the territory, but I still think he's got a great case to be in New York and to possibly be the winner if he keeps doing what he's been doing up to this point. Gabriel, Ward, all those quarterbacks bunched up. I get that. I, however, am a little bit not only am I down on Carson Beck being like a borderline top 5 finalist because of what again? Because of what has he done? But Quinn Ewers, I don't even know if he'll be the starting quarterback in the next few weeks based on what we've seen. Did y'all watch Red River? He wasn't that great.
Yep.
He wasn't that great. And, still not even looking all of 100% healthy. So I'll be very curious to see where he continues to sit as far as Texas and their season goes. Because
he did throw three interceptions and 250 against Michigan on the road, which I know that Michigan has tailed off after where they were ranked early in the year.
Yeah, so I don't really believe in Quinn Ewers' Heisman hopes at this point, although with their schedule, go out and have a big game against Georgia, and you could skyrocket up there. Same thing for the Georgia side of things, obviously, as I kind of picked that apart as well. But, yeah, I think Gente's the main guy. I think the Big 12's got a really great, candidate there in Travis Hunter, and we'll see if anybody else jumps up there into that mix. But he's basically the guy because you see Shador's the number 2 guy out of this league, and Ollie Gordon's not
even listed.
I mean,
yeah.
Forget about it.
Yeah.
That burst before it even got really bubbling, but. Yeah, it's an interesting list to look at. It's been a fun year so far. We'll see who kind of takes it over, and I'm glad to know that Travis Hunter's not going to be bit, hopefully, too much by the injury bug. He's coming back this week, so hopefully he can get back to it.
He plays, I think, on average about 130 snaps a game, and obviously went out in the loss to Kansas State, so that number, I'm sure, by now has gone down. Dion, of course, he wasn't really a two-way player. He played wide receiver. He was a great returner. If you really needed one to be run back, you stuck him back there like the Redskins did back in the day with Darrell Green. Two-way players in the NFL.
In the history of the NFL?
I mean, like literally could play. I'm not saying five snaps at wide receiver.
Because that's what Dion was 5 snaps at wide receiver.
Caught a long pass against Pittsburgh in the Super Bowl, but it's probably the most famous catch, not famous, but it's a catch he made in that. But as far as somebody that really went both ways, I'm sure there's somebody back in the days of using the leather helmets or whatever. But Travis Hunter, he's not injury prone, but he's had some bad luck. Now, he got drilled against Colorado State on that cheap shot that separated his ribs or whatever happened there, and then the shoulder injury. And another reason why you want to be careful about how many snaps you're out on either side of the ball, because every time you take another snap, then you're also vulnerable for a hit. I don't think he's injury prone. He's just had a couple of bad things happen.
Yeah, I don't think he's injury prone. He's tough. Like he's unique. I mean, he's I would compare him to Ohtani. Like we've got, Shohei Ohtani right now. We've got Travis Hunter right now. Those are, that's Babe Ruth and Jim Thorpe at the same time. About every 100 years we're going to get athletes like that, right? They are maybe 100-year athletes, and we're getting to experience them now. So yeah, trying to find another two-way player, that's not like a. I think of, and now he's pretty much a full-time fullback, but Patrick Ricard is the closest thing in the NFL right now, and he's, occasionally he'll play on the goal line as a D tackle, but pretty much now he's a fullback.
Yeah, I'm talking about playing on offense and defense.
He did it for a little bit,
not the special teams, because Tim Brown and
a
few others that were also wide receivers, or defensive backs like Dion, who when they needed him, Darrell Green, they would put him back there, and a lot of times they would take it back. Pretty crazy, probably percentage of how many punt returns, and they would take it all the way back. All right, so Arizona posted this earlier today.
Let's go get us another buffalo.
The title of that tweet was "We're listening." You're asking, and we're listening. What would any of you do, middle of the night, 1:30 at night, if you're dead asleep, and not forget about the uniforms, which I love that color. In fact, I wore this today in honor of Arizona, pretty close to their color. What would you do if that music just started blaring in your house at 1:30 in the morning, dead asleep? I would all over myself.
I live by the fairgrounds, as you know. I'm like, if you just counted the streets, I'm like 7 streets away. Now there's a lot of houses in between there, but a few nights ago there was a Tejano concert that had started, and then it stopped for a little bit. I guess the opening act came on, and then I fell asleep, and then the closing act came on, and it scared the crap out of me, and it wasn't even, and I was still pretty far away. So if it was like that, I'd have to get a new mattress.
Yeah, Craig? You're up at 1:30 though. You're a late night.
Yeah, I think anything. I think there's if I heard this specific, I think anything that's blaring out that late at night is probably going to catch you off guard a little bit. But I mean, the big thing here is the all red's nice, and I'm sure there's been plenty of people clamoring for that, but it's the helmets, which I don't know how much you even saw of that. It's the helmets with their specific cactus logo. That is what makes that unique, and that's part of what's a little bit different and new about these particular unveilings. So that's something that Arizona fans can look forward to. I like it when people shake things up and do something a little bit different. So they're doing something a little bit different for Colorado, and I think they look pretty cool. So we'll see how they look out on the field, and everything looks better when you're winning. They haven't been doing that lately, and they really need to get on track, but Colorado's going to be a tough test for them, and I think you can go look at the Arizona football account. Obviously, you can look at any tweets with these or more detail, but they put the logo that's on the helmet up as their primary avatar. So that cactus logo is right there, and that's what's going to be on their helmets. So, yeah, cool to shake things up a little bit.
All right. Also, Illinois unveiled theirs. Illinois will wear these throwback uniforms against Michigan on Saturday. Illinois had a nice run. Almost blew the game last weekend, but they have had a nice run. 1920s themed, commemorating the 100th anniversary of the Great Red Grange. Scored 6 touchdowns in a game against Michigan. I think he also had 400 yards rushing in that game. The NCAA record, in case you're curious, Samaje Perine had 427 yards in 2014 against Kansas. And had just been broken the week before by Melvin Gordon. As the only two, at 400 yards in a game. Prior to that was LaDainian Tomlinson when he was at TCU. So those are the throwback uniforms for the Illini.
I love them. Absolutely love them.
Isn't it weird how they can have the helmet we have today with all the technology and all the way they can be safe, and yet it looks like it's an old leather helmet, the way that they can do that now with the artwork and graphics, etc. today. Texas and Georgia coming up on Saturday night. What a game it should be. Georgia has looked okay. When Craig wants to say average, he just says they're fine. They're in the top 5. I get it. And then again, maybe they haven't earned that. They lost to Alabama. They played Texas, and is this a must-win for them to be in the playoff, or they're still going to have, no, that's fine. They lost to Alabama, Texas. They can still run the table. I think it is. I think they have. I think they get 2 mulligans.
Look, 10-2 in the SEC is probably going to get you in, and that's maybe even true for Ole Miss right now. But
they better not lose again.
But I do think that 9-3 puts you on the cusp. Like 9-3 might get you in if the other 2 leagues who are beneath the Power 2 don't have enough people to fill in, extra spots. But I think 10-2 in the SEC gets you in.
I think if your 2 losses are to top 5 teams, then that's different than having 2 losses overall. So, yeah, I would think that if they lose to Texas and it's respectable, that they're still going to be fine. I don't think you can have 3 losses, though. I don't care who you are. Say that, and, of course, if somebody were to get the benefit of that doubt, it'd be like one of the 3 schools in the same league that come to mind. It'd be an Alabama, Texas, or Georgia that would be able to get in at a 3-loss. But even still, I think those teams are stretching that. So you've got room for one more. It's a top 5 team. It's on the road. You don't get blown out, then you're probably still okay. You'll probably drop, I don't know, based on AP voters, to 7 or something. So you should still be fine. But, you don't have a lot of mulligans to play around with. That's the downside to the playoff for a lot of people is Georgia would already be in limbo and maybe eliminated this weekend, and people want to see that as opposed to them losing this weekend and still making the playoff. But I don't know. That's the trade-off. You either get a couple Big 12 teams or a couple ACC teams or that 4th SEC team that's maybe riding a hot hand. You finally give them a chance at the end of the year to, go do what they can do. The trade-off is that the big brands at the top get more leeway to just further entrench themselves in those playoffs. So, you have to give to take, and that's the give and the take. So, yeah, we'll see. But 2 losses would put them on that line for sure.
Yeah, no question. And especially because the Alabama game was classic. They came all the way back. They were down at 1 point, 28-0, took the lead. Then they give up the long throw from Milroe to Williams, so they end up losing by 7. If they lose by if Texas just kind of jumps on them and Georgia doesn't take care of themselves as far as the football and they could have a loss in this game that if it's one-sided, I don't know if that will happen or not, but if it is, that could maybe take away that second mulligan. Scottie Scheffler, the great golfer, #1 player in the world, had an unbelievable year, even won the gold medal, won the Tour Championship. He will be the guest picker. That was released today by the Pat McAfee Show, a guest picker for College Gameday in Austin for the game that we just talked about between Texas and Georgia. One of the responses in that note was, yeah, well, you got to get a guy who's been arrested for driving because Georgia's going to be there.
Fitting, yeah.
Yeah, that's very fitting. It reminds me of the SEC shorts crack this week. I don't know if you saw that, where they were having the light bulb golf when they lied. And Georgia came in because I got here in an illegally amount of time. Nope. Yeah. But yeah, I love it. Scottie Scheffler. He's the best golfer in the world right now. I know he's a big college football fan. He's a Texas fan, and should be an interesting one. I hope Corso's okay. He's missed the last couple weeks. Starting to get a little worried again.
I mean, I got worried 2 years ago. Yeah. I mean, I think most people did, but they just kept trotting him out there. So, yeah, I don't know what's going on with that. Hopefully he's all right. But, my God, I mean, it's been painful to watch a lot of times here in recent memory. But as far as the good of game day, I think that's an excellent pick. I mean, the best golfer in the world, a UT guy who's not a retread like a Matthew McConaughey, which that would have been fine. People would have understood it, but we've seen that so many times now. It's kind of, lost maybe some of its luster. So to shake it up and have one of the best athletes on the planet, and certainly a guy who's a Hall of Fame caliber type of player already in his career, I think that is a great choice for Texas and makes a lot of sense, and I think that'll be a nice addition to game day.
By the way, I am glad it's not Matthew McConaughey. He's a stud. We understand he's an icon, but that's always an easy one to get to. But I thought this was...
They had Glenn Powell last year from Top Gun. That you would know, I'm Top Gun Maverick, and he's a Texas guy. There's a lot of celebrities attached to the University of Texas that you don't have to just keep going back to that well.
Well, that's what I've brought up before.
Yeah,
I understand his popularity, and he loves the attention too, and a lot of people do that do those type of appearances. He's on the sideline quite a bit, but and he seems to be such a great dude. Somebody in the chat room mentioned that they feel like A&M is going to be 4-0 in the SEC. They have Mississippi State next. Do you know the overall record between A&M and Mississippi State in the 16 times they've met?
It's not great for A&M. I can tell you that.
8-8.
Oh, well, it's not great for either.
8-8. Now, they played, back in 1912, 13, 15. So, but since they entered the SEC, it has been dicey.
This is the battle for the Jackie Sherrill Trophy.
No, that's absolutely right.
He coached at both places.
Paul and I were in Austin. This has been way back, and I can't remember exactly when, but we were covering Baylor in Austin against Texas, and we're walking around some of the tailgating, and we went inside and a couple of places and enjoyed ourselves with some food. And we happened to catch on the big projection screen is the year that Dak Prescott and Mississippi State, I think, were ranked number 1 in the country.
Yeah, they beat Alabama that year. Yeah,
and they hammered A&M. That's one that I can remember just off the top of my head. That would have been back in the day, though.
Yeah, that was. I think A&M should handle this one. The big one is next week at Kyle Field, where they play LSU. That's a huge one for both of them. A&M can withstand this loss conference-wise because their loss is to Notre Dame, who's not in any conference, and it's still kind of
being playoff-wise, though.
Yeah, but playoff-wise is not good. But
they can't. They lost to Notre Dame, but they can't lose to someone else other than maybe at the end of the year if they continue to win, and then lose perhaps to Texas.
If they lose to LSU, then they have to beat Texas, right? If they beat LSU, then they could probably lose to Texas.
That wouldn't be. That's some blue bloods though. Losing to Notre Dame, losing to LSU, and if you do, in Texas.
If they're 9-3 and their 3 losses are Notre Dame, LSU, and Texas, all teams that are playoff teams, that's a great start for Mike Elko. But I don't think that's not what he wants.
I think that's a great start. Certainly, they're off to a great start right now, and to get a win this weekend and just position themselves as far as the postseason goes. I think you've got a real winnable game, although it's in Starkville, so there's that element to it. But, I mean, there's nothing we've seen from Mississippi State this time around that would lead you to believe that this 1-5 team is going to jump up and bite you. But you got to be prepared for anything. I think you feel good, though, about your chances. And, yeah, the bigger games are on the other side of it, but you can't start looking at those yet. You got to just handle your business and what's in front of you, and I think Mike Elko's the type of guy to do that. So I like the fact that we haven't talked about him that much, really, that they've just kind of been handling their business, and, that's about it. Not a lot of drama, no guys racing through parking garages like morons, no extracurricular BS going on like it seemed constantly there at the end with Jimbo and some of his guys. It's just been kind of quiet in a good way of just going out playing football, winning games, and going on to the next one. And that's been refreshing, whereas A&M, when they've been successful, have typically also had a type of spotlight attached to it with Johnny Manziel, obviously creating a lot of that, and then that just sort of carrying over. And with Jimbo, just a lot of kind of nonsense going on. So, yeah, I like their spot. I like them to win this weekend, and then after that, all bets are off. But they have every reason to talk, big implications right now because they're in the thick of things.
They beat the hell out of Missouri. I mean,
and that shouldn't have been surprising because Missouri was a paper tiger anyways, and everybody knew that was watching those rankings. I saw somebody ask, trying to downplay the SEC, mystique of the polls getting, put in certain ways in their favor, which I think is obvious because somebody drops and then somebody else jumps up dramatically. Somebody drops out, another team jumps in. Somehow you have a bunch of teams lose and you gain a team in the ring, like that kind of a thing. But that's an example where I think you do see that.
Paul, what have I called that? The AP Top 25?
The SEC bubble?
The SEC bubble. Now, there's a lot of teams that have earned it. A&M has earned where they're moving up. Huh?
The cushion.
Yeah. But they beat the living hell out of Missouri, and now they have Mississippi State on the road in Starkville. And then, as you mentioned, Craig, a heck of a game in a couple of weeks with a hot team in LSU after that overtime win against Ole Miss.